Good evening. I would like to call to order the November 16th, 2022 regular school committee meeting at 6:01 PM. At this time, I will entertain a motion to convene an executive session, a non-public session to discuss the approval of the October 12th executive session minutes and collective bargaining pertaining to the TTA teachers, and the school committee will reconvene in open session after the executive session.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second.
and a second from Mr. Rousseau, and a roll call vote. How do you vote, Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
Mr. Rousseau?
Aye.
Mrs. Biagioni Smith?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Executive session. Thank you. Good evening. I would like to reconvene the regular school committee meeting at 6:31 PM. Our announcement, the November 16, 2022 regular school committee meeting will be televised and recorded. It may be viewed live on Comcast Channel 22 and Verizon Channel 34 or on youtube.com/Tewksbury TV. Under the open meeting law, the public is permitted to make an audio or video recording of an open session at a public meeting. At this time, I'd ask if anybody is recording tonight's meeting to please identify themselves. And seeing nobody, could we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Rania, would you like to lead?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Sullivan is not in attendance tonight. The October 12th, 2022 executive session minutes were voted on and approved in executive session. And before we start, I just would like to take a moment to express my appreciation for the opportunity to attend the MASC-MASS conference earlier this month. It was a great opportunity. We were able to sit in on a variety of lectures and sessions. This was all very important information, and I think it contributes really well to the work that we're doing. I personally appreciated the sessions on school funding, safe routes to schools, parliamentary process, and a topic that I hope we explore this year is school committee goal setting. So I'd like to thank Mr. Russo for being our delegate and representing the committee and the assembly for participating in the voting process of the resolutions. So does anybody else have anything to add on that topic? Okay. So, moving on, we have some recognitions. This is Terry O'Regan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We have some amazing students being recognized nationally with us here tonight. I'm going to invite Principal Andy Long up to the podium, and then beside him, I'd like to invite John Baker, Marissa Tout-Puissant, and Raphael Baluco, our recognized students, to stand up at the podium with Mr. Long as he shares with you why these students are being recognized tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to recognize John Baker, Raphael Baluco, and Marissa Tout-Puissant for their National Merit Scholar recognitions. John Baker was a commended scholar, meaning he was one of the top 50,000 scorers in the entire nation this past year. Raphael Baluco was named a National Hispanic Recognition Program Award winner. And to qualify for that, he must have a 3.5 GPA or higher, have a permanent address in the United States, must identify as Hispanic or Latinx, and have taken the PSAT 10 in the spring of 2021 or the PSAT in the fall of 2021. Sophomores and juniors are eligible for this only if they score in the top 10% within program by state in eligible exam period. So this is a big deal. Congratulations, both of you.
And we have some recognitions. And Mrs. Biagioni-Smith, do you mind grabbing one of the microphones so that it's on?
One of the mics.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's not for, so that's on the audio. Thank you.
All right, so I have a resolution of recognition, whereas John Baker, a senior at Tewksbury Memorial High School, has been named commended student in the 2023 National Merit Scholarship Program, and whereas John received a letter of commendation from the National Merit Scholarship Corporation for his exceptional performance in scholarship program, and whereas John placed in the top 3% of more than 1.5 million students who took the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test in the fall of 2021 and placed among the top 50,000 students who entered into the 2023 competition, and whereas John has brought great pride, recognition, and honor to himself, his parents, and his family to Tewksbury Memorial High School and to the town of Tewksbury. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tewksbury School Committee applauds, honors, and recognizes the exceptional academic performance of John Baker. Congratulations.
All right, this resolution of recognition is to Rafael Beluco. Whereas Rafael Beluco, a junior at Tewksbury Memorial High School, is the recipient of the 2022-2023 National Hispanic Recognition Award. And whereas Rafael was awarded academic honors from the College Board National Recognition Program. And whereas Rafael enrolled in the College Board of Assessments and in his achievements in the classroom. And whereas Rafael has brought great pride, recognition, and honor to himself, to his parents and family, to the Tewksbury Memorial High School community, and to the town of Tewksbury. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tewksbury School Committee applauds, honors, and recognizes the exceptional academic performance by Rafael Beluco. Congratulations.
And we will be inviting your parents up, and as I said, children.
You can feel free to just give it back over and give it to him now. He won't be. He'll leave.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Congratulations.
And I think we should, Mr. Parsons is going to read the recognition for Marissa, and Mr. Long, if we could give it to you to give to her, that would be great. Thank you.
Resolution of recognition, whereas Marissa Tupoisson, a senior at Tewksbury Memorial High School, is the recipient of the 2022-23 National African American Recognition Award, and whereas Marissa was awarded academic honors from the College Board National Recognition Program, and whereas Marissa excelled in the College Board assessments and in her achievements in the classroom, and whereas Marissa has brought great pride, recognition, and honor to herself, to her parents and family, to Tewksbury Memorial High School, and to the town of Tewksbury. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Tewksbury School Committee applauds, honors, and recognizes the exceptional academic performance of Marissa Tupoisson.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming tonight. This was a nice thing for you guys to all come together, so we appreciate it. We're going to now next move on to our Student Council Representative Report, but don't feel obligated that you need to stay for the meeting, so, you know, yes. And Ms. Rania Aluwahi, welcome back. We missed you last month.
Me too. I'm sad that I missed it, but I'm glad to be back.
Okay.
So, good evening, everyone. Over the past few months, a lot has happened at TMHS, and I'm really glad that I'm here to give my student report today. So, to begin, I'm going to start with some sports updates that have happened recently. And so, yeah. Though the fall sports season is coming to a close, and it's already ended for many sports, the sports that have occurred in this season, they've all achieved many great things. For instance, the Redmond volleyball team won their volleyball game yesterday, allowing them to move on to the state finals at Worcester State this weekend against Dennis Yarmouth. Tewksbury swimmers, including myself, on the co-op Methuen-Tewksbury swim team attended states at MIT this past weekend. Many swimmers secured several individual wins, and our boys' relay teams attained multiple victories. Additionally, the field hockey team made it to the playoffs. The football team did as well, but unfortunately, the football team ended up losing the first week of it. Nonetheless, they still did very well. The winter season is upon us. Some winter sports that will be starting up include basketball, indoor track, wrestling, ice hockey, gymnastics, and cheerleading. Next, I have some club updates for us tonight. So last week on November 10th, there was an 8th grade step-up day in which all the clubs set up tables around LGI 1, and the 8th graders had the ability to explore each of the clubs offered here. Additionally, the TMHS Theater Company put on a wonderful performance of Radium Girls earlier this month, and the next show that they will be putting on is A Grand Night for Singing. Auditions for it will be next Monday, the 21st, after school. International Club also has a lot going on currently, and they're taking part in several volunteer activities, including the Jingle Bell Run, which will be handing out water to the runners on December 11th. Student Council has also been very hard at work recently, and on Tuesday we went on a trip to North Andover High School for the NEMAS conference. Here we attended several workshops, which helped us further our leadership skills and all in all become stronger members of the Student Council. Finally, yesterday DECA hosted their annual fashion show to raise money for the Megan McCarthy Research Fund. All of the money obtained from the fashion show is donated to the Cancer Research Fund at the Dana-Farber Institute in Boston. Some just miscellaneous things that have happened and are going to be happening include the Parent-Teacher Conference, which will be held tomorrow, November 17th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and parents can sign up on Sign Up Genius in order to arrange their meetings. Also tomorrow, during the school day, there will be 2 field trips, an art one to Mass MoCA Art Museum and an engineering one to UMass Lowell. Next week, on Tuesday, there will be the Powder Puff game, and on Wednesday, the half day before Thanksgiving, there will be a pep rally at school. So that's all I have for today, and I hope everyone has an enjoyable Thanksgiving break. Thank you.
Thank you, Rania. Any questions or comments from the committee? No. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and moving on, next, we have a couple of presentations. I don't know if you'd like to introduce them.
I would, Madam Chair. I'm very proud. We have 2 very, very relevant and valuable presentations for you tonight. Let's begin with our English Language Education Team update. With us is Ms. Karen Baker O'Brien, who is directing this ELE department, Ms. Karen Hodgson, our lead ELE teacher, and Ms. Kathy Henry, who is currently an ELE teacher at the Ryan School. Tonight, they'll be highlighting not only the growth of our ELE program, but the vast diversity Tewksbury Public Schools are so happy to have amongst our families and students this school year. So without further ado, Karen, and Kathy, you have the stage.
My name is Karen Hodgson, and I'm here to represent the ELE department along with Karen Baker O'Brien and my best mate, Kathy Henry. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to highlight our program and our students with the following slides. So to begin, we currently have 7 full-time staff members, 1 at each building, thankfully, and I thank you for that. So this is an image of our team. And to begin, I'd like to talk about the population that we have for our ELL learners. So although the population is a fluid population, the trend is going up, up, and up. And within the last 5 years, it has doubled. So currently, we're at almost 150 L students throughout the district. And the reason, the definition of an L student begins with a home language survey. That's part of the enrollment act. If there's a language listed other than English that the child is exposed to at any level, we start with the screening process. And then if they qualify, they get a language level, and then we begin our services. So to break down the population of our schools, these numbers represent how many L's we have in each building. Largest are doing in Heathbrook at this time. It seems that the saturation seems to be at the lower grades, but I think it's fair to say in the higher grades, we have a lot of the newcomers and the higher needs of an L student, okay? But it definitely varies throughout. So those are our total enrollment at the moment, and there's 2 types of L's, if you will. There are active L's that we service on a daily or weekly basis based on their language level. In the next slide, we'll explain the language level. But there's also a classification called FELS, former English language learner. And once a child qualifies to exit our program, we still need to follow them for 4 academic years to be certain that they're acquiring the curriculum properly in English.
Ms. Hodgson, I know you talked about our active Ls at approximately 150 active Ls. How many FELs do we currently have in the district, approximately?
Within the 4 years that we have to follow at this moment, we have about 81. But after the 4 years, they are always a FEL. So they always can have accommodations that speak to ELL.
And so that's in addition to our active Ls, and that's why I wanted to bring that up. Okay.
Represent the combination of the 2, yes.
Yes, these are the combinations.
Yes, yes, yes. So if you look at the high school, it's the 8 core actives, and then I have 12 FELs. They might not know them, and I'm involved in everything they do within the semester in regards to social, emotional, academic achievements, and things of such. So that's what the numbers represent at this time. So from there, this is how an L is determined. Once a year, the children have to take a standardized language exam, and it's called the ACCESS. And that stands for Assessing Communication and, sorry, I have to cheat, Comprehension in English State. This happens in January, and I often explain it as it's the MCAS of the ELL. It's an intensive exam, takes 2 to 4 hours, depends on the child's ability and actually their age. It happens in January, and when we get the results, that gives us a language level. When we get a language level, that determines how much service we give them on a weekly basis. So this is called the ACCESS exam. From the ACCESS exam, you get a level of 1 through 6. A 1 is a child who's just entering the language, often has very minimal, usually only social language. When somebody learns a second language, whether it's an adult or a child, there's 2 components. There's social, which is this, and you learn it a lot on the television and being with others. Then it flips into the harder side of academic language. So if somebody who's entering is L1, they don't have very much English to start learning with. And it goes up the scale. If somebody's considered a 6, that means they're working at peer level of a native language speaker. And within that scale, a 4.2 is the magic number that the state allows a student to be exited from the program, and then we follow them for the 4 years. At this time, the 1 through 4s, this is what the population looks like. So it seems to be either on the very low end, the very newcomers, or right in the middle that we have to work super hard to get them up to that 4.2, where they'd be eligible for exiting the program. And the line on the right is when they get a 4.2, between a 4.2 and a 6, we can make them that FEL, and we follow them for the 4 years. So that's how they get classified, and that determines the service minutes, which could be from 5 days a week, 90 minutes a day, 5 days a week at 45, or a few days a week at 45. It all has to do with the magic L number. And then, let's see. Now, how our program works. We have a staff at every building, and the ELL teachers focus on listening, speaking, reading, and writing. But from there, it has to be in collaboration with the content teachers. So the content teachers teach to the mass standards, and we need to collaborate and support them. But in addition to working with the teachers, we find it's a school community need as well. Because from there, we need to have them use the programs and to be able to feel comfortable and get the support and be involved in the clubs and the sports and community involvement. So it's really a team approach that it can't be done without the 3 components working well together. And we're fortunate that it does happen that way. Would you agree?
I totally agree.
Okay. From there, now, this isn't just all L's, because you don't have to be an L learner to have a different language, okay? But currently, in our system, the top 4 languages are those. Portuguese and Spanish are off by 1 or 2. So those are our top 4 languages. But I find this pretty amazing. 47 represents the entire number of languages aside from English that is occurring in the Tewksbury families. It might not be the child's using it in school, but the home. And those are the 47 different languages that our families know or use. And from that diversity, these are the things that come out of it, aside from being an L learner. They're a large part of the Sailor Biliteracy program, which is a new program that the high school has instituted that highlights and acknowledges students who can be bilingual or multilingual, and it goes on their transcripts. Some colleges are starting to accept credits for it, so a lot of times the L's fit very nicely into this program. So they will be tested in their native language and English. In addition, they get involved in the senior project. We've had L's go out to our elementary schools and work in the same class that just helps support, and I often call it like a big brother or big sister, to children who really don't have the language, but they look up to them and say, it's kind of cool, somebody else speaks my language and they can understand me. So that has been a very successful program on both ends. We are now starting what they call an ELE PAC, where we'll bring a lot of community involvement, and the parents and staff members will come together and form a committee to do a lot of outreach and support the ELE community. And then often we have, if we do a field trip, often we'll put a big L with a little L, and they'll correspond and email and get to know each other, so when the field trip occurs, they have somebody again to look up to who might know their language. So these have been successful field trips in the past that we had the high school Ls, and actually went all the way down to the Ryan as big Ls.
As the big kids, yep.
Big kids who supported the smaller kids. And then we also had former Ls come and do presentations to get service minutes or hours for National Honor Society and different types of clubs that use their native tongue in order to communicate with the population that might need it. So in the next slide, I would just like to continue to highlight some of the things and the achievements our Ls have done, and that's in thanks to supporting the program and having the staff necessary. They've gone on to excellent jobs. Nelson works for National Grid. He's doing terrific. These are some of the colleges our kids got into. The one in the corner, Yifeng, she got into the business school. She started maybe in 5th grade and probably didn't talk for 2 years. And we didn't know what was going to happen. And God love her, she's up there now rocking it. They've gone to these universities. They've gone on to, right there, she's going into a doctorate's program, graduated with honors from the name of the school your daughter went to?
Mass Pharmacy.
Mass Pharmacy, she's done well. But we've helped with citizenship, getting American citizenship, and those are some other colleges that our kids have been part of. What's that? Medical school, yes, Cheryl's going to medical school. We're very proud of her. And to end with it, and I thank you for the ones we saw at last week's open house. I hope you enjoyed it. These are just some pictures of the open house, and I just thought this was a cute email that I got from a mom after the event, because she just felt special. She made a connection, and that was just pretty wonderful. And that's what we're after with this community. Teaching them a language, but also making them involved and feel included with family engagement and establishing them as a TPS family. And from there, I thank you. We thank you for your support and ongoing support as our population grows and becomes more diverse. And if there's any questions, I can answer for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Mr. Russo?
Yeah, so phenomenal. I really appreciate this. This was it was sort of eye-opening for me a little bit last week at the open house. I can't say enough good things, and sort of interacting with some of those parents and whatnot, and just seeing the appreciation on their faces for the things that were happening and the interactions that were occurring was awesome. A couple things I just want, maybe one comment and one question. I think it's fantastic when anytime we can bring sort of our older students together with our younger students, and sort of having that buddy system and program, I think is great. I know as a school district, I know we do tend to look at opportunities like that when they can present themselves, so it's great to see that the ELE program has that as well. I think the question I have, though, is I know that the state has certain requirements that you sort of trip when you hit certain levels of a population. I think that we're sort of there in some regards, having, like you said, almost 150. I guess, what's the next threshold? And then is there any type of grants that we can, seek out or, achieve?
Magic number is 100.
Okay.
And the 101 trips making a pack, which is great.
Yeah.
And the other part is we can now qualify for Title III funding. After the 100 enrollment, we can do that. In the past, if we were under 100, we were considered low incident.
Yeah.
And we could hook up with other low incident communities to try to get the money.
Yeah.
Has never been successful. But now that we are called mid-level incident school, we do have the opportunity to tap into other funding, which to me is a win-win, so.
Okay, okay, awesome. And then I guess, maybe one other follow-up then is, so based on where you have the student population, I think, 55 was at the Dewing, and another large number at the Heathbrook. Obviously, those kids are going to be sort of shifting a bit, to the center school, and then ultimately, because we rotate every couple of years in new schools, I'm assuming that you sort of have that plan to be able to account for that, because I would imagine that 150 will continue to grow.
Yes, so we will have 2 staff members at the new building.
Okay.
Currently at the Heathbrook, we have 2. One staff member is doing kindergarten
Yeah.
and first,
Yeah.
and Kate is doing second. So Kate will take the second and go to the
Go
new
to the
school.
center school.
And Jess, who works at the north
Yeah.
and supports the Dewing, will take the north and the Dewing up to the new school.
Okay,
So
awesome.
that's how,
And also, we have to remember that the little kids come in and they're in a language-rich environment, so many of them will fell out before they come up. Usually it's
That's fair.
first, second grade, and then they're good, and they
Yeah.
turn into fells.
Awesome.
That's why our fell numbers are much higher at
at
the
the
higher
upper
levels.
level.
Yeah,
Yes,
awesome.
exactly.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And if there's ever anything that you would ever ask, maybe what could be next down the line or supported, and we haven't figured out a way to make this work, but some type of newcomer program. Because when we get an L1, I just got 2 kids this week. One beautiful girl from Haiti, 10th grade, and another one from Brazil today in 12th. One doesn't have any English, and she is not accustomed to learning in a new environment. They didn't use technology in Brazil. They're not used to Google Classroom and attendance and having homework. And a lot of those things we need to work on and strengthen them before they can even be a successful learner content-wise. Because if the foundation is weak in understanding how this works, they're not going to be able to grasp it up here. So there is a great need to have something, whether, I don't know, it's after school, before school, during school, to help these L1s who really are coming into a new culture, aside from having no language, no social language. So maybe at some point, that's something we could put on our wish list.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I might, I think it's important to note in Massachusetts, we are not a bilingual education state.
Right.
Our L teachers, who are amazingly dedicated and committed to assisting every student, and when you think about the complex content, really from the Ryan up, if you have 0 English, how much can be missed in any given lesson? They're not bilingual. They're not speaking those 47 languages. So, and I think that's always, when I know, I think we walked through a classroom last year, and you observed 13 students with 9 different languages all in the same room, and some of them having no English at all. So it really is magic that they do, but when we hear recommendations like that with our growing population, it's something I know that I'm listening to.
Okay.
And we're fortunate that all our teachers are what they call SEI endorsed, which means they've had a course to help and support the Ls, but they aren't L teachers. They are math teachers, they are
Right.
history teachers, and we get it.
Right.
And, sometimes we have to start way down here, and we can't get to the Civil War until we can teach them how to log into Aspen or how to go to the lunchroom and use a pin.
Right.
Yeah.
And not that they can't learn those things, they've just never been exposed.
Right. Mr. Russo, you all set?
Yeah, I think maybe just the one thing I'll add, just to your point, Ms. Regan, anything from the committee standpoint that we can do to continue to support that from a funding standpoint. I mean, I know budget season's coming up, Dave, so anything that we can do as a committee, I know I would be in support of, and obviously would look to my colleagues to be able to support that as well. So I don't disagree with that, and you guys have a tough job on your hands.
They make it easy.
I actually was wondering the same thing, like, do you guys actually speak these 47 languages? I didn't think so.
So people say, oh, you're bilingual? I'm lucky on my best days if I can get English out there correctly, never mind. But what these kids teach us is amazing, amazing. And these kids work twice as hard as their counterpart, because even if they do have the language, the brain is switching back and
Oh, yeah.
forth. And they go home to a beautiful, loving environment, but it's usually not in a language, it's not in English. So it's a lot. It's a lot. But they're good kids, and they're worthy, and they work very hard.
Yeah,
We're
thank
proud.
you.
So thank you for hearing us and having us. And anytime, we're available.
Yep.
Any additional questions, Mr. Parsons or Ms. Beatrice?
I do have a couple, I'm sorry. Yeah. I know I don't want to keep you standing up there. I was so impressed with the open house as well. I loved it. Like you mentioned, when we went around last year, it was at the Heathbrook, was the classroom we went into, and I was blown away by what they were doing in there. I think they were in kindergarten.
Right.
So yes, I appreciate everything that you're all doing. You started to talk about it when Mr. Russo asked, how long does it take to, I think you said fell out, to get to that point? Is there an
There's a
average?
magic number, 4.2.
That's the score they have to get?
That's the score
right?
from that Access standardized exam.
And how long does it typically take a student to get to something like that? Any idea? Is it
It
just?
really depends, because
Yeah.
that would be like saying, well, how long does it take for everyone to get an A in science? You
Yeah.
know, so they all have different strengths and different challenges. Some can come in and then exit out in 1 year. Others might be lifers. But I would bet most,
Second language, they say. They say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is hard to say, because if the family never went through our American school system, you know, not that they don't want to support them, they don't know how to support them, so that kind of sometimes brings them a peg down in the reality of things. So when we put all three components together, the content teacher, the community, and ourselves, it really lifts these kids up all the more and quicker. But it is on individual.
yeah.
I love the potential for this ELE pack. I have pack roots, so it makes me happy to see that that's coming through, and I think that that would be a great opportunity if the funding for some reason doesn't come through to that orientation, that newcomer, to really utilize your pack families,
Yep.
because
Right,
it's such
And they're
a...
eager. And we
I-
got a few applicants from last week, and we're thrilled. We don't really know what we're doing, because but we'll probably start with some good food and conversation and make everybody
That's right.
comfortable, and then veer into how can we help you, vice versa.
It sounds awesome. Thank you.
We look forward to it. We really do. I consider myself fortunate. I think Kathy does too.
For sure.
I just have one comment. Do you feel that you have enough support in terms of supporting the families with, whether it's interpretive services or?
Interpretation, yes. We've
yeah,
been
things
fortunate
like
to
that.
have a new program, Lexicate, and they have been wonderful. They're out of New York. It does get a little tricky when we have, beginning of the year, open houses and presentations. We really don't want to rely on grandma, who might have limited English, to try to narrate a parent through sometimes important things. But yeah, we have, Brenda will do anything in her power, and we're creative, and the parents, once they're very open.
They are, and they let us know what they need. And now we are getting a whole crew of former ELs who are in college, but who will come back and help us too. So that's always helpful and rewarding.
It is.
So, but Lexicate is an amazing program.
And we also tap into the International Institute out of Lowell. They have an interpretive program that speaks so many languages, and they provide both phone translation and/or in-person translation.
Nice.
So we're getting there, and it's just getting people used to saying, oops, this has to be translated, or this isn't a basic phone call home, because mom's probably not going to pick up the phone if their language is limited. So that's where we build the trust and hopefully get them to, oh, okay, I'll pick up the phone and try my best. So it's a learning curve for us all, but
And centralizing the registration allows us to get a pulse on that right in the time they start the enrollment. And Karen and her team were notified immediately, so that they know, and then the building principals know, that there will be a need within the school to help this child and their family.
Excellent.
Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Parsons, did you have anything?
Yes, and I'll be quick. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. It's so important and very, very much appreciated. I need to apologize. I wasn't able to make it to the open house, and I'm really regretting I didn't. That looked
It's always next year.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
okay.
Promise. Other than that, I would just want to kind of echo what Bridget said. If there's anything we can do to help you support families and kind of foster some more community, even beyond just the school community,
Okay.
I'm sure we'd be more than willing to help that. I also want to encourage you, maybe reach out to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee in town too. This is a topic that's brought up there a lot, about how to have some cultural events in town. Seems like these would go hand in hand.
Yes. We used to partner Graça Dudley, she's world language here, Spanish, and at one time she did an amazing culture fair. And she said, Karen, your kids will fit perfectly. And before COVID, we did it, and it was amazing. We haven't had one since, but there's the connection where they're in a larger group and they can share and highlight themselves.
Right.
So even if we don't have the culture fair, maybe the town-based program you're referring to.
Oh, for sure, and opportunities there.
Yeah,
Know a
absolutely.
few people that could support you. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
And then we have another presentation.
Madam Chair, Assistant
McDermott?
Superintendent Lori McDermott will go up to the podium. She's going to share some MCAS data and summaries from the district.
That's okay.
Madam Chair, while Ms. McDermott's setting up, we have some local interpreters, too, that help us out. Mr. Andy Long, some of our teachers. Each year, we survey our own staff and say if you speak another language and you're willing to help in a pinch, and Ms. Ryan that was here, Graça Dudley, obviously, Mr. Long, you know, they've helped us out a number of times whenever we've needed interpreters. So we applaud our staff for pitching in when we need as well.
That's excellent.
Have a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're setting up, Mrs. McDermott, I will just maybe take item number 10 out of order. If that's a problem for anybody, it's just citizens forum,
Should just make that motion to.
if there's a
Yeah,
motion.
I'll make the motion to go out of order, yeah.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Parsons. So item number 10 is citizens forum. And so seeing nobody in the audience, I'm going to assume that there's nobody here to speak tonight. And do you need a few more minutes?
She's dragging, she's connecting.
This is really testing my skills.
You are,
I'm
She's just shutting them
impressed
off.
with myself so far.
That's okay.
Approval minutes?
All right.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay,
Do you want to make, are you making a motion?
Don't help.
We can make it.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take number 11 out of order as well.
Okay, and a second
I'll second that.
by Mr. Parsons.
Okay, I would like to,
Oh, and all, so there's a motion and a second to take item 11, the approval of minutes, out of order. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the motion passes, and we will now go to approval of minutes with Mrs. Biagioni-Smith.
thank you, sorry about that. I would like to move the committee for the approval of the October 12th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Okay, is there a motion?
Well, that was the motion. I'll second it.
Oh, you made the motion.
I made the motion.
Oh, okay.
I'll second
I'm sorry.
it.
That's fine.
And a second by Mr. Russo. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And any opposed? So the motion passes.
Awesome.
And we will now go back to item number 9B, which is the spring MCAS update.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present the 2022 MCAS overview. I wish I was not following such an exciting, upbeat presentation, but that's okay. Next time I'll try to go before them. So basically what we'll go over today is sort of a district overview, and we'll be talking about achievement as well as student growth percentiles, and those are a little bit different. So when we're talking about MCAS achievement, we're talking about how the students performed relative to the state standards, and they get an achievement score for that. And then we're also talking about how they grow over time. And so that's more about, it's a little different than how they achieved, but how they're growing over time. So compared to last year, how much did they grow from last year to this year? And we're always hoping that students are going to make a year's growth. So I put this together for you so you could kind of get an idea. The scale is the achievement scale, and most folks have seen this. This is what comes home in the parent letter explaining. And that 500 is that magic number of meeting expectations. And then there's a student growth percentile, and when we're looking at student growth, we're looking on a scale from 1 to 99, low growth being in that, under 40 range. That 40 to 59 we call moderate, kind of typical growth. And then there's the high growth from 60 to 99. So I'm always kind of looking to say, okay, did we hit that 50 mark to show a year's growth? So from a district overview perspective, related to achievement, about 49% of our students demonstrated proficiency, meaning they scored in the meeting or exceeding range with a standard score of 500 or higher. That's about, in this case for the state and ELA, we were about 8% higher than the state average, and you can see that trend line over time, and I showed you 2017 to 2022, so you can kind of see we've been riding above the state. We definitely had a high in 2019, and that's where I'm going to compare our data to today. So while that high is fantastic to see, it made our low, look a little more low. So you can see that in terms of student growth, again, we were just about 50. The average student growth percentile was just about 50, which is considered typical growth, and we were right in line with the state for growth. So now I'm giving you, that was a district overview, and now I broke down the schools for you, and I decided to compare 2019. It was a recommendation from the state. We're looking at pre and post pandemic. And there was 2020, we didn't have MCAS. 2021, it was a kind of a modified version and a different scale for student growth calculations. So we're looking at 2019. And so you can see there's certainly, a decrease. We had about an average of an 15% drop from 2019. If you average the changes all together, you can see that there's some schools that stand out with a little more of a drop, and some schools that held their own a little bit better. And you'll see that throughout. We know that across the state, early literacy was a focus in reading and writing. And we saw that play out here as well. So now I highlighted the student growth percentiles, the average student growth percentiles across the schools, so you could see the difference in the district overview compared to how our individual schools fared. Our average SGP scores, for the most part, remained in that 40 to 60 range, which is considered moderate or typical growth, again, with that 50 being about a year's worth of growth. So for the most part, we remained consistent here, which I look at as a positive sign, considering there was a drop in our average proficiency score, right? So while maybe our students didn't score as well, they were able to demonstrate growth, which is always good to see. So here's a district overview of our performance in mathematics, and you can see that about 45% of our students scored in the meeting and exceeding range, and that's about 6% better than the state average. And our average SGP was just about 50%, indicating that on average our students made, again, about a year's worth of growth, which is right in line with how the state performed. And there you can see that trend line again with that high in 2019 and a little increase from our 2021. And then here's again the school overview. So here in mathematics, again, it's similar to ELA. There's a decrease in the percentage of students who are meeting and exceeding as compared to 2019. It's an average of about a 14% change compared to prior to the pandemic. Giving you a second to digest. Same for student growth in terms of average student growth percentile. We performed within that moderate range again, which is good to see. And I also, you can see that the TMHS, the high school, showed a significant
improvement in their SGP compared to 2019 in mathematics. So that was a bright spot. But overall, across the schools, aside from that lift, it's not too much change there. In science, our students take the science test in grades 5, grade 8, with about 54% of our students meeting and exceeding, and that's about 12% higher than the state. And you can see that trend line with a little dip up. Nice. And then when you look at the schools, same here. There's still a dip, of course, from 2019 prior to the pandemic, but that's an average of about an 8% difference from 19 to 22, so a little less than we saw in math and ELA. I'm showing you this slide again because you had asked about the new competency determination. So currently, if you're not meeting expectations, you need to graduate, right? So if you're not passing MCAS, that means you're not meeting expectations. So you're below that 470, and you've got to retake the test. You've got a chance to do that in 11th and 12th grade. And now, this is a lot, so let me talk you through this. So they broke down the scores a little bit more now, so you can see that if you're not meeting from 440 to 454, then you do have to retake MCAS. You've got to retake that test. But now, if you are not meeting expectations in that 455 to 469 range, even though the communication will say that you did not meet, it's considered passing, but you are required to take, to have the EPP, which is an educational proficiency plan. Basically here what we do is you are in a course, so in this case for ELA, you would be in an English class that, and they're specifically addressing the standards that you did not do as well in, where you weren't meeting expectations. And you can see that same thing happens when you look down at the 500 mark in ELA, you are meeting expectations, and just above that, you're partially, even though you're partially meeting expectations, you have passed, but below that, you're partially meeting expectations, but now you still have to take that EPP. So they've increased it there, where they're saying you kind of didn't do well enough, even though you partially met. They've raised that score a little bit to say we want to give you a little bit extra. We want to make sure you're in a class that's addressing those standards to ensure that you're meeting the graduation requirements. Same thing happened in math. It's just a bizarre 469. It's just one point. If you get that 469, then you do not have to retake. You do have the EPP, and it's the same sort of thing. You can be partially meeting, but if you're at that lower end of partially meeting, then you are still expected to take a class that's addressing those standards. And in science, it's sort of the same breakdown, different numbers, but there is no EPP yet. So that's a lot. So, in terms of next steps, we kind of think about where do we go from here. The state is encouraging us to use this. We talked last time about the new baseline. I mean, overall, the results in Tewksbury were consistent with what we saw across the state. We know we need to continue to focus our attention on early literacy and early numeracy, and closing the gaps for our subgroups, especially our students with disabilities. Certainly an area of focus. We're continuing the implementation of the new math curriculum units in grades K to 4. We've had as you know, the successful adoption and implementation of the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness Program and Foundation, the phonics program. It's wonderful to see those programs playing out in the classroom. As you know, we also have in play the ELA pilot for a new high-quality literacy curriculum resource. Our literacy coaches are supporting the Tier 1 instruction as well as providing targeted support to our pilot teachers, which has been incredibly beneficial. And we have our reading specialists who are working to support students in small and large group intervention. We're really trying to, we're using the data, our local data that we're seeing, not just MCAS. Remember, this is important, right? It is our state testing. It is one assessment. There are cases where a student is doing very well locally on their report card, their grades are good, and that one day doesn't represent their best work. Sometimes they're not great at taking tests. Sometimes they've got some anxiety. Sometimes they just had a bad day. You don't know what you left when you came in to take the test, what happened at home, what happened on the bus on the way in. There's all those factors. So we look at MCAS, we take it seriously, but we do look at it as kind of one piece of the whole child, the whole data profile. We have district directors taking a deep dive into the data to disaggregate the standards we need to focus on in each subject and at each grade level to support principals and share with PLCs so that they can use that really granular information to plan for targeted intervention to address those standards. And it helps us reflect and kind of audit our own curriculum to say, okay, are we doing enough to meet the standard? How did we approach it? What can we change? So that's that Otis platform that you've heard a little bit about. Jason Stamp and Felicia Chinanovich have been doing a ton of work there so that, and what's neat is once that gets into Otis, that all that data follows the student. So that's real simple for the teacher to click on that information, open up the students and get, here's a group that I can pull for this geometry standard. So it's super helpful. We're going to plan for some training for teachers for that. As you know, we're participating in the Paving the Way for Proficiency for all students, for reading for all students, including those with dyslexia course. It's a very long name. And that's a 45-hour course for interdisciplinary teams. You had to apply through the state to get into that class, and we did, I think, because we had a nice eclectic group, myself, our literacy director, one of our literacy coaches, our director of special education and assistant director. We're 3 classes into that, and that class is really focusing on the MTSS structure, really looking at your local data and using that data to inform your instruction, which is right in line with our focus with Cale Burke here. For observable impact, so it's feeling like it's all really coming together. We also have a partnership with Sale Literacy Lab, directed by Dr. Tiffany Hogan out of MGH, and that's really to improve educational outcomes for students with speech, language, and reading impairments, and we're looking specifically with them at our MTS structure and our intervention resources. Our MTSS structure is, the tiered supports that we can offer students, and then what happens in those tiered supports, what resources are we using. Brenda and I continue to focus our instructional rounds with principals at the district level. So we're meeting with principals, the leadership team as a district, we're visiting schools, we're determining look-fors based on the data that we're seeing, and then we're coming back together to talk about teaching and learning as a district. Brenda and I are also doing that individually with principals. We're going to visit schools, we're talking to them about their local school data, and then we're doing some walkthroughs of classrooms, talking about look-fors, and coming back and having great discussions around teaching and learning. We're really looking at that instructional core. What is the teacher doing? What is the student doing? And what is the content? And how are all of those things interacting together? Our goal is to really support the principals as instructional leaders. It's a really big job. And we have a lot of support now with Brenda and myself and our district directors, our literacy and math coaches, our tech coaches. So hopefully they're feeling that support. These are some of the factors that we can control. When you really dig into the data, and I've spent more hours than I want to admit, certainly on television, looking at all of this. And there, you know, if I were to go really granular with you and show you the different grade levels at all the different schools and compare it to the state, you're going to see some, you know, I told a story here of the district performing a little bit better than the state, right? We could tell a different story that at different grade levels, we didn't fare as well in comparison to the state. So we know we have work to do. We know that we have gaps to fill. I did give you an appendix. Let me show you. So in this appendix, I was going to do all of these slides tonight, so you can thank my husband and our STEM director, who both said, don't do that. So it's a lot, but you can click on any of those, and you can see the subgroup data, which I do think is, you know, it's important data, and I gave you the data for the subgroups for achievement as well as for student growth percentile. And what jumped out at me was students with disabilities. We definitely have gaps in those subgroups. I think most do, but they're not insurmountable gaps. They're not gaps that I look at and say, woof, boy, this certain subgroup really, you know, we've got to hone in there. Students with disabilities in ELA, yes, right, we had, and for all students, we had interrupted schooling, we had attendance concerns, right? Students weren't available for instruction. Sometimes their teachers weren't available for instruction. So I feel like we have all of the pieces in place that we need to really move forward in a thoughtful way to start to close the gaps for our students. And I'm looking forward to it. I think we can only go up from here. We'll be putting this presentation into a parent-friendly format for the principals to share out with families, so that can bring a little color to any more information that they might want. All right?
Thank you so much. And any questions? Yeah. Mr. Parsons?
So with the proficiency plan and students going to a support class to address the standards that they missed, would that be students enrolled like in a cohort together, or would it just be specialized instruction by a teacher in a general class?
Right. So it doesn't have to be a specialized class, because it's math and ELA, and we have math and ELA every year. We just have to make sure that the student, that the teacher is well aware of the students, the standards that the students really need to focus on. But no, it doesn't have to be something separate.
And if I may, the teacher or department chair is tracking their progress based on that proficiency plan on those particular standards. So that's key, because there has to be some verification that they did.
And potentially adjusted, right?
Yeah.
So while they're monitoring to make sure that they are making that progress, and it does have to be verified by the principal.
Okay, no, glad to hear that. I was just concerned about, students being tracked or
Right.
losing a little dignity being in.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, so with the students with disabilities being the kind of jumping outlier group here, or I don't want to say outlier group, just most noticeable gap that we need to close. Do we feel confident that the interventions in place will be enough, or is there any other kind of support or staff that we might need that could help address that?
I feel confident. I feel like our district focus is on equity, right? And providing equitable instruction to all students. So we really want to support students as much as possible in our Tier 1 program, so that they are exposed to high-level instruction, high standards, high expectation, all the same content. And then we want to, and this, some of the work that we're doing with the Paving the Way course and with MGH is really targeting what does their specialized instruction look like, and how is it really focused and targeted for their specific needs. So and we have such a strong partnership between us the directors and the special education department. We are meeting all the time and talking about data and talking about students and how they're performing. And we're getting around to see it playing out in the classroom. So I feel very, very optimistic. And if the special education director was here, he would say the same. He's constantly saying, I feel like we've got all the pieces to the puzzle. I do think we have to put the puzzle together, right? And it's not going, I can imagine that next year I'm not going to stand here and say this is all fixed. I would like, I'm going to be, I'm optimistic to believe that we will see growth, but it's going to take some time, right?
Sure. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Mrs. Piatroni-Smith?
Yeah, I just have one thing, and it's just to elaborate a little bit more on that education performance plan.
Yeah.
For families, what is the engagement with the families if a student doesn't hit that, if they're in that needing the educational performance plan?
The family's engaged all the way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it a letter home? Because I would
Yep.
say there are probably some families who get their MCAS scores and open it, they look at it, and they're like, yep, don't really care. Some families look at it and overanalyze it, and they're like, oh my, it's the end of the world, and whatnot, and, very nervous about what that means. So what would that, do you have any idea what that'll look like at this point?
Yes, can I just address that a teeny bit? The EPP happens at high school only.
Okay.
Because of the competency determination. Students have to pass.
Okay.
Or reach the proficiency to graduate. So the EPP is at high stakes, testing time. And again, that is why, and you support this as a committee, we have an assessment assistant to the principal who tracks the needs of every single student and then schedules them appropriately, meets with them, whether students have to retake or be on an EPP, and those teachers of the content areas are tracking too. So it's a high school specific?
So is that retake only for high school also?
That's right.
Yes.
It's just the graduation requirement. Nothing below 10th grade. Not that it doesn't matter, but
It's just a tracking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying that,
Welcome.
that's
Yeah.
important.
something else that I thought of while you were talking about that was important. In terms of, it'll come back to me.
Family engagement? No? I don't know. That's all I had.
Mr. Russo, any?
Yeah, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Ms. McDermott, can you actually go back to it was the English language arts, maybe the district overview performance. Yeah, right there. So I just want to make sure that we're crystal clear, and especially for folks watching at home. So we say that the average student growth percentile grew 49%, or is 49%.
So, yeah, the average student growth percentile for our students was 49%.
49%. And that showed growth, basically, compared to prior, I'm assuming prior in this situation is 2021.
In that compared to prior year is 2021. And I didn't show you that data because it's apples and
Yeah,
oranges.
it's not,
Yeah.
it's modified. Yeah, I understand that. So, but from 2019 to 2022, we see the decline in the trajectory there. So let's just assume for a second 23, 24, 25, you add those on at some point over the next 3 years. I mean, do our teachers have the support? In this case, I'm just focusing on English for a second. Do our teachers have the support that they need to be able to help our students get to back up to 62% or whatever it was in 2019 and hopefully continue that trajectory upward?
In terms of resources?
In terms of resources, I mean, I know we're inputting some things at the lower grade levels from a curriculum standpoint. Obviously, I think the intent there is to help that, so that obviously that trajects upward. I'm concerned that, we're going to compare against this baseline of 2019, and how long does that continue till we get above that? How long? So my fear is that in 2025, let's say, that we're not at that level, or that we're just maybe back to that level. So now do we have 6 years worth of education for our students that has, for now a child that was maybe in 3rd grade that took it is now in 9th grade now in high school? Have they missed the boat
Still
on
trying
all the
to,
things that they need to be able to get to that graduation requirement that we know exists?
Yeah, no.
No, okay,
I-
okay.
No.
Okay, and
No,
I look
I-
at this and that's what I'm concerned about, I suppose.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for teachers right now is our third grade students, our sixth grade students, our 10th grade students, they look different. They're not our typical 10th grader, they're not our typical third grader, and I think that's what's hardest for us to get our heads around. And I say us because I see it too, and it's like, wow, these kids they're different than the pre-pandemic third grader. And so I think where the struggle is for our teachers is now, I've always had to differentiate. Now I really have to differentiate because our typical third grader is not, right? So and so we're encouraging, all we can do is continue to move our kids forward. From where they are, right? We have to look at our students and see what they need now and not get too caught up in this isn't typically what I do in third grade, right? This is what I need to do now because this is what the student needs. So I think providing, and there is so much support here. That's why the support of the coaches is so important to help them through that differentiation, the support of the reading specialists taking small groups, being able to support the teachers. It's the differentiation, I think, that is the key. And I would like to think that our students are going to, grow exponentially as we get back into the rhythm of being here and our attendance continues to improve and things start to, continue to stay relatively normal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any comments other than to say thank you for your thorough explanation of the next steps. I think that answered a lot of my questions, and I appreciate you tying in things that you're doing in the district now to address some of this even before you had the MCAS scores. So, thank you.
Thank you.
This was great. Okay. Moving on now to the submission and payment of bills. Mrs. Biagioni Smith.
All right. I would like to move the school department payroll for the period ending October 13th, 2022, to be approved and certified in the amounts and categories as shown for a total amount of $1,507,882.43.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Biagioni Smith and a second by Mr. Russo to approve and certify the payroll period ending October 13, 2022, in the total amount of $1,507,882.43. For a roll call vote, how do you vote, Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
And Mrs. Biagioni Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Russo?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well for unanimous vote.
Madam Chair, I'd also like to move the school department payroll for the period ending October 27th, 2022, to be approved and certified in the amounts and categories as shown for a total amount of $1,513,224.82.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Biagioni Smith and a second by Mr. Russo to approve and certify the payroll period ending October 27, 2022, in the amount of $1,513,224.82. Roll call vote. How do you vote, Mr. Russo?
Aye.
Mrs. Biagioni Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Parsons?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well for unanimous vote. And moving on now to our superintendent and staff report, Mrs. Terry O'Regan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 3 additional high school students that I'd like to recognize tonight. These are scholars, if you will, in the athletic arena. For high school athletes, November 9th was the first day seniors could sign a national letter of intent to play Division I or Division II collegiate sports next year. We have 3 students that have signed that NLI. Samantha Ryan will be playing softball at St. Anselm's next year. Karina Barron will be playing volleyball at Bryant, and Amanda Ogden will be running track at Holy Cross. These 3 young ladies make us very proud, both on and off the field, and I congratulate the 3 of them. Second, healthy snacks are now available for a sale after school here at the high school. We have so many students who stay after school for athletics as well as in our high school clubs. So the food service department is stocking the what are they? Thank you. I was going to say concession stand, vending machines with some very popular healthy snacks like granola bars and smoothies. So thank you, Madam Chair. I know that was an initiative near and dear to your heart, and we are seeing it pick up. So students that stay after school can obviously fill their tummies with some healthy snacks so that they can stay here for hours after school. I'm also very proud to share with you and announce that it's official. Tewksbury is a recipient of the DESE After School and Out of School Time Grant. It's called our ASOS grant, in the amount of $100,000. This is $25,000 more this school year than last school year. This ASOS grant funds our 2023 Summer Heathbrook Penguin Pride program, our school year 2023 after-school academic support for Wynn Middle School and Tewksbury Memorial High School students, and the summer academic credit recovery program here at the high school for our Wynn Middle School and high school students. Huge thanks and gratitude goes out to Dr. Basteri for her continued efforts in bringing these grant dollars so we can provide these programs for our students. A rejuvenation of our recycling efforts is happening here at the high school. As you remember, this is a district goal, striving to be a greener school district, and we commend our students and our schools in working towards that district goal. Lori and I continue to work with varied stakeholder groups to give us feedback and thoughts on the district vision and planning, as well as our vision for our learners in Tewksbury. We have now, all staff have participated in this process, as well as some of you, some of our parent groups. All parents will get the digital survey so that we get a wider voice from our parent population at the end of this week. We also met with, let me just catch up here with my own notes. We met last week with members of our high school team on our Wynn Middle School Student Council, gave us some very, very valuable feedback and relevant information that they feel we should know about the student experience. In the upcoming few weeks, we will be meeting with our entire high school advisory board, student advisory board, who will help us put that survey through to all high school students in the student advisory. We'll be meeting with our senior center in early December, as well as getting an additional survey out to our alumni. We met yesterday afternoon with town manager and members of his team, who gave us some relevant feedback as well from the town department head perspective. So our goal, if you remember, is to finish gathering data through December, and then have an entry plan or finding of entry plan survey data to you in the early spring, which will then culminate into a end-of-year district plan. I want to thank you to Therapy Travelers for their generous donation of $500 to Tewksbury Public School District. And then a thank you to members of our committee for inviting me and joining me at the MASS Joint Conference. There were many highlights of the conference. Most beneficial to me was the student-led sessions on fostering belonging and equity. It was amazing. I took those lessons those students shared with leaders and hope to share that with our high school student advisory team. Also were some wonderful ideas on helping districts with their communication planning and how we can market and promote the good things that we're doing in this district. So I hope to tell you more about that in the future, how we're going to do that here in Tewksbury. And next, I want to personally thank Mr. James Sullivan and the student coordinators of the Decker Fashion Show. The coordinators were John Regalino, Michael Sullivan, Sam Ryan, and Emma Jensen. They invited several survivors of cancer to the event, and really not only honored Megan McCarthy, a former student of Tewksbury High School and of Tewksbury Public Schools, but also raised a phenomenal amount of money to help the cure of cancer. This group, over the years, has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's quite amazing. I shared with the team as we were backstage, that it's their efforts that they could even showcase survivors of cancer at this show. It's their contributions to the world, as I think they raised about $15,000, maybe more last night, but it's because of their efforts that they are able to boast and talk about a hopeful cure for cancer in the world. So thank you, our deepest gratitude to all of them. And finally, as we near the Thanksgiving holiday, it's appropriate that I really share our gratitude and thankfulness for so many of the efforts that we see as we observe and walk through classrooms. Ms. McDermott talked a bit about our amazing administrative team and our district leadership team. They truly have embraced the hard work that we are looking to achieve in improving their instructional leadership practice so that we can make improvements in teaching and learning in the classroom. And that certainly would not be able to be done if for not the very talented and dedicated teachers and support staff in our schools. As we walk through the classrooms, it's just amazing to see the engaging lessons and the strides they're making towards relevant teaching and learning for our students. I'm so thankful for them and their efforts, to all of the staff that help our students through their very, very difficult school day. And then most of all, thankful to our students who really share the joy in what we do in our work. It really, when you hear about the DECA team or the recycling or all the many things our students are doing, not only through their hard school day, but to improve our world and our community, we are most thankful for their efforts and their families as well, and to you as well, school committee. So my deepest gratitude and thankful message to all of our families and students as we near the Thanksgiving holiday.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Just one. Appreciate the update, Ms. Regan. Is there anything that maybe you can just comment on just from last month's update with regards to the status of the work that's being done around the audit?
Yes, I can. In fact, and I wrestled with how much I want to put on my update. I'm meeting with Steve Smith next week.
Okay.
Possibly the following week. We're a little upside down with the move, and Mr. Libby will give you some updates on that. But we will be reviewing his draft of recommendations and his findings for the audit. I intend on bringing that to you in the December meeting.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Parsons, anything for you?
Mr. Russo covered it. Thank you so much, and thank you as well.
Thank
Hard work you all do.
And Ms. Biagioni-Smith?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions either. Thank you very much. Mrs. McDermott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I may go back quickly to MCAS, because I did remember. When we were talking about the 10th grade and the graduation requirement, I think it's important to point out that very few of our students don't pass. Very, very few. I mean, I think there was one student, and I mean, it's like a very small handful in certain subjects, really minimal amount of students. So I feel like I should have said that in the presentation. It's not a grave concern for us, which is great.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Thank you for remembering, right? In terms of, to echo what Brenda was saying, this week is American Education Week, and all of the schools have been celebrating. It's also a time for us to celebrate the hard work of our teachers. And when we talk about all of these walkthroughs that we're doing, I do want to call out the fact that it is, as a classroom teacher, it is it can be pretty intimidating when a group of administrators come strolling through, and then another group comes strolling through, and that they're going back and discussing what you're doing, and they have been so welcoming and really just open their door to us. And so we're very appreciative of that, because we understand those challenges as well, and I think they know that we are there. We've asked them to assume positive intentions, that we are there to celebrate their work and truly learn from them and their students, and how we can continue to move the district forward. All of the schools have been celebrating in their own way. A lot of our elementary schools are having different parent engagement events. Some are virtual and different, taking their live streams on the road through the building and inviting parents to have a little window into the day, which is great. We have some of the schools doing some thank yous to teachers, like from the students to the teachers, which is always greatly appreciated. I love it when we can take an opportunity like that to teach our students, to show kindness as well, and also letting the teachers know how how great they're doing and how much they're appreciated. Some of our elementary schools have had community readers, and many of us have had an opportunity to go to schools and read. I went to the Trahan the other day, and I'm heading to North Street. I know Brenda's been out there, all the district, everybody's been, it's been a lot of fun. And I know the high school has, and the Wynn School are working together for their 8th grade step-up day and their parent presentation coming at the end of this week. So there's a lot going on. For our PD, we had a PD day earlier in the month, and all staff worked in their buildings with their building leaders to continue the work of the Vision of a Learner, and this work really supports the work that Brenda is doing in terms of getting the vision from all of the stakeholders and how important it is to hear the student, the teacher voice. And so they participated in the body part exercise that many of you, I think, have either participated in or at least seen. And so Cale Burke is back in the district this week, actually. You know, it's funny, last time we met, he was here virtually. Now he's here in person. And he's working with all the leaders and the PLCs to coordinate all of that data and continue the work with observable impact. I don't think any of you were able to attend the Veterans Day ceremony at the high school, but I have to say it is certainly one of my most memorable days here in Tewksbury. I think I might have saw, maybe a little tear in Dave's eye, I'm not sure. But it was an emotional event. It was so well done. There were many local veterans honored, and we met in here, and there's a nice little social where we got to chat and eat these fabulous cookies. There was a General Alan Pepin was the keynote speaker, who's actually a Tewksbury graduate, and he gave an incredibly inspirational speech, and he brought along the Army band that really put on such an incredible performance for our students. And it was to sit back and sort of take it all in. I don't think anybody was not feeling emotional. The kids were singing. All of the veterans who were there were, pulling out their phones and trying to get, pictures of it all happening. And the students were dancing together and really supportive of each other. And watching the students on either side of the gymnasium dancing, and when you're talking about that sense of belonging and feeling free to be themselves and really take part in the event, it was really, really heartwarming. So I'm not sure what they're going to do next year, because that's going to be tough to beat, but it was really, really beautiful. And that, I think, pretty much wraps up my update.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Mr. Parsons?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Russo?
No, not at this time. Thank you very much.
No questions.
And I did hear great things about the Veterans Day ceremony, so I'm glad you mentioned it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Okay, and Mr. Libby?
Thank you very much. Good evening. I have a few quick updates for the committee. I'll start with the center school updates. Hit a few milestones over the past couple weeks. On October 28th, the project received substantial completion, which is a big milestone that was on the schedule from the beginning. So that's as scheduled. Big milestone for the project to hit. On November 1st, we held it was a teacher's workshop day, half day for students. We held move meetings with staff from the Trahan, North Street, and grade 2 staff around the district with our move manager, who kind of explained the nuts and bolts of how the move's going to work over the vacation time, and what folks should bring, what they shouldn't bring, how they should pack in great detail, and provided them with instructions on how that will all work and look as we get closer to the bulk of the group moving in over that December break. On November 2nd, we met with our central office administration staff and held another meeting. with different dates, different expectations on those folks moving in. We've had ongoing training on building systems with our maintenance and custodial staff. They're learning the HVAC systems, the lights, curtains, doors, locks. Everything is in the building we're being trained on. So when we take it over, we'll be familiar with how those systems work. Our bus routes have been drafted for the changeover in January, been given to the bus company. They're reviewing them. They'll go over it with the drivers, and we'll be tweaking those, presenting those in December to the families so they can start preparing for any changes that might be happening on their routes. Furnitures and fixtures have been arriving on scene every day. In a beehive of activity there, putting desks together, tables together, chairs together, and getting them in the classrooms and in office areas and different spaces in the school. Technologies being installed and tested. Most of the Clear Touch boards are installed now in the classrooms and up and running. Phone systems being installed and up and running as well. This week, we've hit some milestones too. Monday, the 14th, the first moving materials were delivered by our moving vendor for people moving out of this building and people moving out of the fire station, the central office folks that are moving in. Received our crates, boxes, bins, and our moving materials to get ready for packing. Tuesday, the 15th, the town took over insuring the building, which is sort of a paper milestone, but it's kind of a big deal. The contractor is no longer the official insured owner of the property, and the town is now the insured party. And today, John Marchand got the keys to the place, so that's a big milestone too. On November 28th, right after we come back from Thanksgiving break, the central office, special ed, food services is scheduled to move into the administrative wing of the school, as well as our instructional coaches moving into the new building. So next week, short week with Thanksgiving, we'll be doing a lot of packing in the central office, trying to be as receptive as we can with emails and phone calls, but we will be having to do those other tasks to get ready for the movers on Monday when we come back. So we ask for a little bit of patience if folks are watching. We may not be as quick to respond, and we will probably be, for a time on Monday, our phones are going to be in limbo as we make that change from these different locations to our central admin wing in the new school. And on the next day, the 29th, we're set to move the library materials from the elementary schools over to the new building and start setting up those areas of the school so they can be ready for students and staff when they arrive in January. But quite a lot of activities around the move. Becoming very real, feeling for everybody. We're trying to get as much information out as we can as things become relevant. So we're asking for everyone to kind of be patient, and we'll be addressing as much as we can out to the public as time moves on through December. Also, quick update on budget. After we get moved in and settled, I'll be conducting our typical budget meetings we have with principals and department heads, with keeping in mind this data that we've just learned about. I'll be driving some of our decision-making during the budget process, looking for, areas where we can address some of those needs. And also, I'd like to just echo the sentiments that Ms. Regan and Ms. McDermott expressed about going out at our DLT meetings and seeing the classrooms. I've been doing that. It's something that we've been talking about doing for a long time. And you never seem to get away from your desk and go see what's going on in the classrooms. And it's great for us to do that and be able to apply that to this budget process and see the technology working and see the kids, using it and appreciating how engaged they become when they're, taking a quiz online and they can see how they're doing, like right in front of them, and they're high-fiving because they got 99% right. It's really good. So, I'm glad we're taking that step this year and visiting the schools, and appreciate the teachers letting us do that. That's all I have for my report.
Thank you so much. Any comments, Mr. Rousseau?
Just one question. You mentioned, Dave, that a lot of the furniture and fixtures are being delivered to the center school, desks being put together, et cetera. Is the furniture and fixtures and desks, et cetera, coming from the old schools too, or is all that stuff staying behind?
No, it's all new.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are we doing with all the old stuff?
What's that?
What are we doing with all the old stuff?
Well, we're going to see what we want to redistribute to the Heathbrook and Trahan, what's size appropriate and in better condition than the stuff we have there now.
Okay.
That would be step one.
Yeah.
We've talked to the move vendor. Wakefield Moving is our move vendor, and they actually have a connection with some third world countries where they take surplus educational materials and will ship materials to third world countries that are in need of those types of materials. Before we get to that point, though, we may, I see emails weekly on the MASBO, which is the business officials listserv, offering tables, desks, cafeteria tables, whatever people have in excess that people might want to come pick up. So we'll offer it to other communities, see if anybody wants to take any of the stuff that's in good condition, and then see what Wakefield might have in store.
I just would add, similarly with our technology, so it's not only the furniture, it's the technology that's being repurposed in our other schools, supplies. Some resources will go home with students. We always offer to students too, for example, older, out-of-date, not current textbooks, things like that students may want to take. So it's a big process, and we're a little fortunate because typically this happens over the summer and get it all done, and we have a little bit of time to be very purposeful and make sure that anything that's useful gets put to good use.
Yep.
Yeah, Chromebook Arts technology is all coming, but the furniture, desks and chairs and teacher desks is not.
All right. Thank you.
Excellent. Mrs. Biagioni-Smith.
Thank you so much for the update. Not a question, but more maybe a suggestion or an idea. With all of the communications that go out from all the different principals and the parent councils and whatnot, maybe some type of an FAQ newsletter, center school specific. I think that it's been a big topic on media and the parent communities, on the, just on the, word on the street, everybody's a little nervous or excited or whatever their thing might be, some type of FAQ email that's geared towards
I mean,
move specific so it doesn't get buried.
Right, I mean, right now, I mean, think about how we had to keep doing layers of new phone extensions and how to get in touch with. We're going to have to redo that again, and what we don't know right now are what our new phone extensions are. So we realize that parents and community members are going to get hit with a lot of updating during the move, December and January, early January, a lot, and you're correct, because it's all new again. But we really do appreciate as people are patient with us, and we hope to be down for a very little time while the whole transition takes place right after Thanksgiving.
Great. And Mr. Parsons?
Thank you for the updates. I'm good.
Okay, and I don't have any questions either. Thank you, Mr. Libby. That was very thorough. I'm excited. This sounds like a really exciting time, and good luck with the move. Okay, and our consent agenda. I think several of those topics were addressed already in your update, but are there any questions, comments, concerns from the committee, or do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion, yep.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Russo to accept the consent agenda as presented,
I'll second that motion.
seconded by Mrs. Biagioni-Smith. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope, and the motion passes. And our school committee member reports. I will forego the elementary school building committee report unless there's anything else that anybody would like to add that attends those meetings. I think you're pretty thorough, Mr. Libby. The Tewksbury CPAC.
Yes, so November is CPAC month, and the color for that is yellow. The CPAC, with coordination with the police department, held an event at the police department on November 3rd. Families and kids had the opportunity to see and develop some familiarity with officers, vehicles, all things police-related. They also received information about Project Lifesaver in the Safe Watch program. Right now, CPAC is in the process of working with our special ed department in the Federation for scheduling the Basic Rights Workshop, scheduled on January 19th with a focus on the IEP process and what to expect at those meetings, just to prepare and support families going through that process with their children.
And just to add one more thing, that they are meeting with the police department tomorrow evening. That's Thursday. What is tomorrow? The 17th at 5 p.m.
Thank you.
So it was on their page today.
Great, thank you so much. The Wellness Advisory Committee, Mr. Russo.
No new updates. We're meeting next on Wednesday, December 7th. That will be our next meeting.
And the Policy Subcommittee, Mr. Sullivan is not here, but the one thing I would like to add from the Policy Subcommittee is that we had agreed at our last meeting to take a little bit of a break. I think we needed a reprieve so that administration can get relocated to where they're at. We do have a couple of policies that are kind of still out there that we have discussed as a committee, but we're just waiting for some stakeholder feedback. If those come through between now and probably we won't bring any new policies forward till probably at least February, you may see them on the agenda, but I don't think for right now we're going to have anything new other than just kind of what we already have in the works. So that would be the biggest update that we have from the Policy Subcommittee. But then I can move on now to actually looking at policy changes, proposals, and adoptions. And I will start with the policies reviewed and adopted with no changes. This is an informational item only, but a vote is required. That is EBAB, pest management, and EEA, bus driver examination and training. Are there any questions, concerns, comments on those two policies?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve them as stated.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Parsons. So there's a motion and a second to Review and adopt with no changes EBAB and EEAEA. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? So that passes. Next, we have policies for consideration for revision and/or to adopt with MASC recommendations on informational reading. So that's EB, the safety program, EBB, first aid, EBC, emergency plans, EBCD, emergency closings, EC, buildings and grounds management, ECA, buildings and grounds security, ECAC, vandalism, EDC, authorized use of school-owned materials, EEA, student transportation services, EEAA, walkers and riders, EEAE, school bus safety program, EEAEB, drug and alcohol testing for school bus and commercial vehicle drivers, EEAG, student transportation in private vehicles, and EEAJ, motor vehicle idling on school grounds. Questions, comments on any of those? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
Do we need anything on this one, Madam Chair?
You know, I looked back, we have been motioning and voting to approve, to move them forward, yes.
Okay. Then I will make the motion to move forward on the policies as stated previously.
Okay. And is there a second?
I'll second, yeah.
Second for Mr. Rousseau. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are no opposed. This is next, policy for consideration for revision on first reading, and so then we would vote on this to move this forward to second reading. This is BDG, school attorney, CA, administration goals, CB, school superintendent, CBD, superintendent's contract, CBI, evaluation of the superintendent, CCB, line and staff relations, CHA, development of procedures, CHCA, approval of handbooks and directives, CHD, administration and policy absence. Any questions, concerns, or comments? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to move on to the second reading for the policies as stated.
Okay, and a second? A second from Mr. Parsons. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. And seeing no opposed, policy passes. Moving on to policies for consideration for revision on second and final reading. So an approval on this would put this into our policy manual as is stated. This is BGC, policy revision and review. Coincidentally. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt the policy as stated.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Parsons. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And no opposed. And our final section here is policies for consideration to rescind on first and final reading. And that is EBCBA, fire drills in schools, and EEAECR, student conduct on buses. Are there any questions on these two?
Just one, so are we rescinding these due to they're covered someplace else?
Yes, so I can go through this a little more specifically. And Mr. Libby, you may recall some of this a little bit better than I do, but if we start with EBCBA, fire drills in schools, I believe this one was already covered in security.
Emergency or maybe crisis. Gail?
EBC?
Okay.
Yeah, because, yeah. So that was why this was looked at and felt as though it's already redundant in another
Right, yeah.
policy.
Okay.
And then the same thing with student conduct on buses. The R, this is like an additional piece.
Yeah.
So this would be, it's also redundant. There's another policy.
Covered under agency, okay.
Thoroughly, yeah. That covers enough of the information.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can table this if you'd like, or?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
All right. Any other comments, or? All right, is there a motion?
Yep, I'll make the motion for the policies as stated to rescind for the first and final reading.
Okay. And a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Parsons, second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed, so that motion passes as well. Okay, that was actually not too hard. Then moving on now to old business. we have date.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. The first item in old business is an update on our student enrollment verification. This is an informational-only item. No vote is required. As I shared with you last month, the October 1st student data was verified on October 28th. This is the data that will be updated eventually on the Destiny School profile. And as you can see in November, enrollment will fluctuate throughout the year, but we do put a stake in the ground as of October 1st. This is the data that you'll see drive all of those student data points through DESE, and again, the enrollment will be updated in April. So again, informational only, but I wanted you to be aware that we did verify the data October 28th.
Okay. Good. Any questions, comments? And I have none as well.
All right. The next item in old business, Madam Chair, is a potential schedule change to your school committee 2023 meeting schedule. You have already approved the 2023 meeting schedule at a former meeting. What we're sharing with you tonight, and then there's even been an update since it's in the packet, you have the updated list. What we're proposing is to edit only April through June meetings and leave January, February, and March alone, as already approved. And the reason that we're looking to edit April through June, we have a lot of spring activity, and we were trying to fit in 2 meetings in May, which means if we went a little earlier in April and a little later in June, we could fit in 2 May meetings, and really a lot happens between, the retirees, student recognitions, staff recognitions, and then, of course, the end of the year. So we're proposing these these date changes, April, May, and June. This does require a roll call vote.
I have one comment, and that is the April 19th original date was also during April school vacation, so I
Yes,
think
it
it's
was.
nice to pull that out of April. So are there any comments, questions from anybody?
I just want to comment, I am actually excited to add the extra meeting in there. I think it's good to have a little bit shorter meetings. I think it gets tough for our guests, our panel folk, to sit through the long ones. So I do appreciate the reevaluation of the schedule.
Anything? No?
I like celebration meetings.
We all do.
And I think those things are important. I think having our community in, the staff, the student community, I think is important, and I wouldn't want to have to cut that back for some of our business that we need to do. So I like that idea as well. So is there a motion to approve this?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve the updated school committee meeting schedule as presented.
I'll second that.
And a second by Mr. Russo to amend the meeting schedule to change April 19th to April 12th, to add May 31st, and to change the June 7th meeting to June 14th. And roll call vote, Mr. Parsons, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Russo?
Aye.
Mrs. Biagioni Smith?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well, so this is approved as amended, presented. The amended version presented.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we have some future subcommittee and advisory committee dates. The Elementary School Building Committee meets on December 8th, 2022. The CPAC business meeting, as was already mentioned, is on January 19th. The Wellness Advisory Committee is meeting on December 7th, and the Policy Subcommittee is to be determined. Are there any future agenda items that anybody is interested in?
Can we go back to
Oh, I'm noticing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Point of order.
I did miss new business.
Yes.
School committee matters of interest, sorry.
Just a couple. Yeah.
Did I?
New business. Let's start with new business.
Yeah, the new business, I'm sorry, Mrs. Terry O'Regan.
Sure, and I'm going to, the first item on new business is a press release regarding our Massachusetts National Assessment Educational Progress, also known as the NAEP, and Ms. McDermott's going to just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, so Massachusetts typically does well on this assessment. For these results, our fourth graders participated in the reading and in the math. And it just so happens that Massachusetts saw the highest numeric score of any state in reading at 227, and the second highest numeric score in math at 242, and the highest score in math was 243. So it was pretty close. So we're very proud of our fourth graders. We're very proud of the state of Massachusetts for hanging in there. All obviously similar to MCAS, scores across the nation were certainly lower, but Massachusetts stood out in a positive way, so that's nice to see.
Madam Chair, I think it's important to note, and we beat ourselves up a little bit in our own bubble of Massachusetts, right? We're always comparing ourselves to each other, but when we look at Massachusetts students, including our students who contributed to this data nationally, our students are doing very well.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Any comments?
No, not on that.
And I have none as well. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, this second item on new business is informational only. For your consideration, the school committee has it's the purview of the school committee to name key areas in our schools or to name our schools. And as you remember, months back, we brought to you recommendations for naming the new, now known as the Center Elementary School. And now what is in front of you are some of the recommendations for naming key areas to commemorate both the Trahan and North Street School. So we pared that list down now to those recommendations that were brought forward last spring, and what you have are the recommendations to commemorate the Trahan School in the beloved Leah's Book Nook by naming the Library Media Center the Trahan Library. It would be the Louise Davy Trahan Library Media Center. And two potential choices for commemorating the North Street School. One would be potentially naming it the North Street School Gym, and a second would be to potentially name the hallway that leads to the Trahan Library Media Center North Street. So it would be, kind of cute, and I think the idea here is you would take North Street to get to the Trahan Library Media Center, or something to that effect. So these are two recommendations, or three, if you will, in naming key areas. It's informational only, and hopefully we would have a vote of the committee in December.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, now moving on, I've already covered the school committee dates, but we could address the school committee matters of interest. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Mr. Parsons?
I do. So it was discussed in a few subcommittees, mainly the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Advisory Committee. There is a large increase in the number of homeless people in town. As trend's not exclusive to Tewksbury, but most communities in the area are seeing a similar phenomenon happening. In a whole host of different types of people, individuals, families, children, elderly. So I guess this is just me kind of making a call to action to our patch, our sports teams, extracurricular clubs, students looking for any kind of charitable effort. There's a need for it here. Other than that, I have none.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Biagioni-Smith?
Yeah, I have a couple. I'm going to read from my notes so that I don't miss one. Sorry. That's okay. So the Ryan School had their first ever whole school field trip that I was at a PAC meeting, and they wanted to call out 580 students went on that, or 580 people went on that field trip. They considered it a huge success, and the PAC covered the buses for that field trip. The Ryan School also had their second annual Harvest Festival. We had great feedback from happy students, family members, staff members that were on site. There were scarecrows that were made by not only some of the staff in the classrooms, but also families from around town. And Ms. McGinnis was going to share some photos in one of her upcoming updates. So hopefully you'll be able to see some of those there. Both the Trahan and the North Street were able to go to Connors Farm, and that was supported by the PACs. They had a great time, and we're thankful for the support. The PACs are ordering and purchasing T-shirts for grades 2 to 4, including all of the staff that are going to be going to the Center Elementary School. It's awesome. They're going to all have matching shirts. It's going to be great. There are Google signups that they want to call out and remind people to sign up and put your child's size in so that everybody gets the right size. Yeah, I want our shirts too. I think we should all have shirts. They're going to be so cute. Looking forward to seeing those when they distribute them. Mr. Parsons, in line with what you just mentioned, the Dewing in North Street and Heathbrook Trahan are collecting for the Coats for Kids and Families that happens with Anton's. This is something that they used to do a long time ago and have recently brought back, and there are bins in the school lobbies to collect new and gently used outerwear for that. Ryan School is bringing back their career day, and they're asking for members of the community who may be interested in showing up for their career day to teach kids about some of the jobs that are out there that maybe they might not know about. Maybe not your typical doctor, nurse, teacher, lawyer, ones that you started off with when you were younger. They're sharing those as well. And then for folks interested, they can reach out to the ryanschoolpack@gmail.com. All of our lower elementary schools had Scholastic book fairs this past week, and it might still be currently going on this week, where students were either given a free book or had Scholastic dollars to use to purchase a book of their choice. And then finally, the new Center Elementary School PAC elections are taking place in a joint meeting coming up in December, and they invite family members of the students that are going to be attending the Center Elementary School to attend that meeting to provide feedback and support. And then finally, I just also wanted to thank the district for being able to attend that conference. I think I went to 11 different sessions, and like Ms. Garabedian said, like you said, Ms. Regan, it was amazing. I took a ton of notes, and I'm still digesting some of it, so it was amazing. So that's all I have, but thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Mr. Russo?
Just two quick things. Just a shout out, good luck to our girls volleyball team competing tomorrow night in the state championship. I think that's just an awesome accomplishment for those girls. And you know, we'll be there in Worcester tomorrow celebrating and hopefully celebrating with them, and you know, obviously a great accomplishment for them. And then also to our high school cheerleaders and high school football team that are finishing up their seasons over the next week or so as well, with the big Thanksgiving game, of course, scheduled for next Thursday. And then just, you know, keeping sort of with the sports theme for a second, just a shout out to our student athletes at the younger grade levels, grades 4 through 6, that are wrapping up theirs and going to compete for Super Bowl titles and cheer, hopefully a trip to nationals in December down in Florida. So good luck to those that are competing, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And the only thing I have to add is my appreciation and thanks for the effort that's gone into bringing snacks to students after school. And the work that went into the assemblies for the 8th grade students to have access to understanding more about what the Shawshene Tech and the high school have to offer. And there's tours on Friday morning, I believe, for parents and families if they'd like to come visit the high school. So I appreciate all that work, and I know it's a tough time of year for you to pull that together, so thank you. And then also thank you to Mr. Libby and Mrs. Tiro Regan for attending the reuse committee in town and sharing some feedback that they were looking for. So that was much appreciated. And then just some acknowledgement to the high school drama program for Radium Girls. It was actually a pretty fantastic show. The sets were just awesome. So I appreciated that program pretty much. So that's all I have to say. And anything else to add for upcoming agenda items?
I have done.
None? No. All right, so we can now adjourn with a motion.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
And all in favor, please say aye. Aye. And we adjourn at 8:29 PM. Thank you.